Friends and former classmates came together to remember murdered University of Mississippi student.
So I'm standing in the square in Oxford, one of the places where Allie was last seen, and there's a lot of bars here and a lot of surveillance cameras.
Memories that will last a lifetime for friends who were forced to say goodbye too soon.
But it's this camera right here that captured the video police just released. We know from her roommate that she gets home around midnight, but then winds up 30 miles away at a...
Allie Costal loved sunsets so much that she made a second Instagram account just to collect them, not to show off, just to save them, just to have them somewhere. She was 21 years old, studying business at Ole Miss, and by every account, she was living her college years with an intensity most people only talk about. On a Friday evening in July, she called her mom, said she was heading out with friends, and that was that. Normal night, normal call. She came home safe. Her roommate saw her walk through the door, but sometime after that, she slipped back out into the night, and nobody heard her go. By the next morning, she was found 30 miles from campus, at an abandoned fishing camp, shot nearly 10 times. Her purse and her ID were right there beside her. No second Uber was ever called from her phone. No ride was ever requested, which means she got into a car willingly in the middle of the night with someone she trusted, and that person had already decided where they were going. The question that drove this entire investigation, the question that had no comfortable answer, was not whether this was planned. The evidence would eventually make that clear. The real question was darker than that. How long before that night had the plan already been forming?
Steve Courtney, the memorial continues.
Hi, welcome to Last Detective. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me what city you are watching from, what time it is where you are, and what the weather looks like outside your window. I read every single one. And if you are new here and you value real research, human voiceover, and the details that actually matter, hit subscribe. 21-year-old Alexandria Madison Costal was born in St. Louis, Missouri, to her parents Keith and Cindy. She went by Allie to just about everyone who knew her. Her friend Rachel described her as someone who had a natural gift for making people feel good. She knew how to make everyone laugh, Rachel said, and she knew how to make everyone feel loved. She went out of her way for anyone, whether she knew them well or not. Sports had always been a big love of hers. She ran track and did cheerleading in high school, and her coach remembered her as someone who refused to take the easy way out. She liked challenges. She was not afraid of hard work. That drive followed her into everything she pursued. When it came time to choose a college, Allie had her eyes set on studying business and marketing. She loved pink, pearls, and flowers. Her mom, Cindy, shared a detail that says everything about who Allie really was. One of the reasons Allie chose the University of Mississippi was simply because there were so many flowers around the campus. The whole atmosphere made her happy. She walked into Oxford, Mississippi, and it felt like home. She joined the Ole Miss School of Business Administration and took to college like a duck to water, embracing every part of the experience. She became a founding member of her sorority, Alpha Phi. She served as president of the Ole Miss Golf Club and founded several of the running clubs on campus. She taught yoga and Pilates classes, worked as a babysitter and a lifeguard, and would travel to Peru and parts of Africa to volunteer as an English teacher for young children. Think about that for a moment. While most college students were counting down to summer break, Allie was looking for ways to use that time to help someone else. This was not someone coasting through her college years. She was living them fully and filling them with purpose, and anyone who spent 5 minutes around her could see it. By the summer of 2019, Allie was about to enter her senior year, set to graduate in the spring of 2020. While many of her fellow students headed home for the break, she decided to stay in Mississippi and take some extra classes. She was the kind of person who used every available hour. Downtime was not really a concept she subscribed to. In early July, her parents came to visit her apartment. Allie was having such a good time that she asked them to stay an extra day. She wanted her mom to cook some of her favorite meals. They went shopping together and picked out beach-themed decor for her room. It was one of those warm, unremarkable moments that families hold on to forever precisely because they feel like nothing special at the time. Nobody thinks to take a picture. Nobody thinks to say, "Remember this." And then later, they wish with everything they have that they had.
But it's this camera right here that captured the video police just released.
Friday, July 19th, 2019. At 7 in the evening, Ally called her mom. She had just woken up from a nap after a test, told her she was heading out with some friends for the evening. Her social life was as full as her schedule. She hung up the phone, got ready, and headed out. At around 10:30 the following morning, a deputy making a routine patrol of an area called Buford's Ridge, near Sardis Lake, found something that changed everything. It was a remote and desolate stretch of road far from campus, far from lights, far from anyone who might hear anything or see anything. An abandoned fishing camp sat there, rarely visited except by the occasional fishermen or students riding ATVs through back roads on weekends. There were no houses, no streetlights, nothing but long, winding roads stretching for miles through thick trees, the kind of place that feels deliberately forgotten. It was not the kind of place you stumbled into by accident at night. The only reason to go there was because you had chosen to go there. Ally's body was discovered on the ground. She had sustained multiple serious gunshot wounds, at least 9 shots. Her purse, her school ID, and her driver's license were nearby, along with some empty drink cans. 11 shell casings were recovered at the scene. Lafayette County investigator Jarrett Bundren said he had never, in his entire career, worked a murder case where someone had been shot that many times. Sometime around 2:15 in the morning, a person walking their dog nearby had reported hearing gunshots. This location was 30 miles away from her college campus. Using her school ID, investigators reached her roommates and began making calls.
Hey, Morgan, this is Micah East, Eskimo County Sheriff's Department. I'm calling in regards to a friend of yours, Allie Hostel.
But it's this camera right here that captured the video police just released. So let's watch it together.
Security cameras around town gave them their first real lead. At 11:52 that night, Allie had walked out of a bar called Funky's. 5 minutes later, she got into a silver minivan parked outside a place called Rooster's Blues House. Her phone data and the license plate told investigators it was an Uber. The driver knew nothing unusual. He had dropped her off at her apartment safely, and her roommates confirmed she had come home that night. Her Uber account matched the story exactly. What her roommates had not heard was Ally leaving again sometime later. She had not called another Uber from her phone. No ride was ever requested, no notification, no digital trail of a second trip. So who had she left with? There was no way she could have traveled 30 miles to where she was found without someone giving her a ride. And the only way she would have gotten into a car at that hour, voluntarily, in the middle of the night, without asking a friend or requesting a professional driver, was if she trusted the person behind the wheel completely. That single fact sat at the center of everything, because it meant the person who drove her to that abandoned fishing camp was not a stranger. It was someone she had chosen to go with.
An unbelievable tragedy no family would ever want to experience. A college student killed while far away from home. Good evening, I'm Ann Allred.
And I'm Mike Bush. A St. Louis County family is mourning the death of their 21-year-old daughter. Police found Allie Castillo's body near a lake in Mississippi over the weekend.
Saturday, during a routine patrol, deputies found the 21-year-old's body near a lake 20 miles from the Ole Miss campus.
To find out that she was brutally murdered, it's just shocking.
I spoke to Allie's dad, Keith, in person Monday morning, but he didn't want to go on camera. As you can imagine, he was visibly distraught. A sweet and genuine girl who always had a smile on her face.
She quite possibly was the nicest human being that I've ever met. Allie was just one of those people that would just constantly lift you up. So that's why it's so hard for me, and I think a lot of her other friends. It's just like, no one deserves this.
The sorority house pillars now don black bows in mourning. Alpha Phi also released a statement saying, in part, "We hope that those who were closest to Allie can find peace as they reflect on the lasting impact she made on the lives of her family members and friends."
The shock that spread across campus was immediate and complete. Ally had been sitting in a classroom taking a test just the day before, seeing friends, living her life. Ole Miss Interim Chancellor Larry Sparks released a statement saying, in part, "Ally was an engaged member of our community with friends across our campus and a promising future. These events remind us of the importance of leaning on each other in the wake of an event we cannot understand." Grief counseling was made available on campus. The memorial outside her high school continued to grow throughout the night.
Steve, Courtney, the memorial continues to grow outside of the high school here tonight. More flowers and balloons, photos of the Lindbergh High School graduate, where this vigil here was held tonight. They decided to focus not on the horrors that happened just south of us in Mississippi, but instead focus on the life that Allie led.
"I'll just never forget the lesson she taught me," one person close to her said. "If you want to do something in life, go after it and never be afraid to be yourself."
Memories that will last a lifetime for friends who were forced to say goodbye too soon. Friends, classmates, and teachers of Allie Castile gathered around the flagpole of Lindbergh High School tonight to say goodbye.
I think it really set in when I was talking about the memories that we had and looked out to see everyone that she impacted.
At the vigil, friends left notes and memories on a large sign they plan to give to her parents.
Just so they can see like how much she actually impacted our community and everyone that loved her.
From the crowd, it's clear in her 21 years of life, Allie touched so many. These friends say they are thankful that they have each other to lean on, as well as this community. A visitation is planned for tomorrow. Funeral services will be held on Saturday. Live from Lindbergh High School, Alexis Odos, News 4.
Investigators spoke to Allie's friends and other students, looking for names, looking for patterns, looking for anything that seemed even slightly out of place in the weeks and months before her death. They needed to reconstruct her recent life as completely as possible. And as those conversations unfolded, one name kept surfacing, not loudly, but consistently. The same name, from multiple people who had no reason to coordinate their answers.
This morning, a multi-agency manhunt is underway as concern grips this small Mississippi college town. Authorities hunting for a suspect in the apparent murder of Allie Castile. And this is what it looks like around the lake where authorities found her body. You can see a number of trees, also winding roads get you here. And I've only seen a few houses, so this area is very remote. Castile was studying marketing at the university, where the deepening mystery has classmates on edge.
It makes you want to be more careful. I go out and go to Sardis with my friends all the time, and I run around my neighborhood at nighttime. Like, there's people out there you don't know. You feel like you can trust everybody, but maybe you can't.
While the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department is not releasing many details of the investigation, its investigators are following several leads. In a statement, the University of Mississippi offering its condolences. And it's the unknown that is adding to the sense of concern for classmates and also residents in this area that is quieter right now because most students are away for the summer. In the meantime, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigations is helping in the search for answers. Cecilia.
Okay, Marcus, such a sad story there. Thank you.
Back in Allie's room, investigators found something immediately significant. Her cell phone was gone. Whoever she had left with that night, whoever had driven her 30 miles from campus, they had made sure the phone went with them. But her Apple Watch was still there, sitting on the dresser, and some of her messages were still synced to it. What those messages contained would reshape the direction of the investigation entirely and point investigators toward a story that had been unfolding in private for months, a story none of Allie's friends had known the full picture of. Between what those messages revealed and what her friends were telling them, one name kept coming up: Brandon Thiesfeld. In the fall of 2016, Allie had met fellow student Brandon, and the two had carried on an on-and-off relationship ever since. Friends were candid about what they had witnessed. Brandon did not treat her well. He'd say hurtful, degrading things, one friend said plainly. Another had spent countless nights with Allie while she cried over him. Brandon would harass her and then go completely silent, block her, then unblock her. Allie wanted something real, someone to build a life with, possibly marry, maybe start a family with. Brandon was never on the same page. As her friends put it simply, she liked him more than he liked her. He could be the most charming person in the room and then suddenly reveal a genuinely aggressive, angry side. There was no warning for when the switch would happen. That unpredictability was part of what made the relationship so hard to leave, because the charming version always came back. Allie had always wanted him to meet her friends, but he was rarely around and rarely interested. Brandon's roommate Rex described the dynamic in direct terms. He said Brandon led her on consistently enough to where it could reasonably be described as emotional abuse. Rex also noted that Brandon had a violent streak and that he constantly referenced his father's money, making a point of saying his dad could get him out of anything. That was not an idle boast. It was a worldview. He was dismissive, crude, and disrespectful toward people around him, especially toward women. But none of Ally's friends knew how dangerous the situation had actually become, because what the messages on the Apple Watch revealed was something far more serious than anyone had realized. They revealed that Ally believed she might be pregnant with Brandon's child and had been trying desperately to meet with him in person to talk through what to do. During her autopsy, it was confirmed that she was not pregnant at the time of her death, but it could not be ruled out that she may have been pregnant at some earlier point. On April 14th, Ally had sent Brandon a photo of an inconclusive pregnancy test. He replied by saying, "All right, well, if it is pregnant, we aren't keeping it," and followed that up by making clear that becoming a father at the age of 22 would ruin his life. Almost immediately after that exchange, he began searching online, not for reassurance, not for information about options. He searched for abortion services, abortion pills, and the phrase, "mother wants kid, father does not." Think carefully about what those searches reflect, not just panic, but something far more deliberate, something that looked a great deal more like a man mapping out what he wanted to happen. Their communication after this point was only by phone. Ally was not coping well with any of it. She sent him more pictures of inconclusive pregnancy tests. She sent lengthy, sometimes rambling, almost entirely one-sided messages, begging him to meet with her in person and work things out together. At one point, she told him she was experiencing significant bleeding and believed something was seriously wrong. On July 18th, just 2 days before she was killed, Ally sent him another text, this one accompanied by a photo of her stomach. After receiving it, Brandon sent a text asking if she was free to meet and talk in person. A few hours later, Ally was dead. When police called Brandon and asked if he could come in for a conversation, he told them he couldn't make it that day, but assured them he would be there first thing Monday morning at 8:30 sharp. Monday came and went. Brandon never showed up. Investigators did not waste any more time waiting. They began tracking his phone and his bank card activity. What they found showed him driving away from Oxford, heading in the direction of Memphis, Tennessee. Authorities issued a be-on-the-lookout notice for his vehicle, and the vehicle was distinctive enough to stand out. His license plate spelled out the phrase, "Take it." They also obtained an arrest affidavit for murder. About 2 hours after the notice began circulating, Brandon was located at a gas station and taken into custody. He was wearing clothes that bore visible traces of what had happened. Inside his truck, police found a .40 caliber handgun, one he had taken from his father's house. He had even posted a photo of that gun on Snapchat with the caption, "Finally taking my baby back to Oxford." That weapon matched the evidence recovered at the crime scene.
And that breaking news from Lafayette County, an arrest is made in the shooting death of Ole Miss student Ally Costello. The person behind bars is another Ole Miss student. Chief Deputy Alan Wilburn said that Brandon Thiesfeld of Texas charged with Costello's murder. Thiesfeld's Facebook page lists that he is a student at the University of Mississippi. Wilburn will not go into the particulars of the case, except that Brandon went before a judge this morning for his initial appearance. His booking photo will be released later this afternoon.
Back at Brandon's apartment, investigators found a handwritten note addressed to his parents. Part of it read, "Dear Mom and Dad, I am not a good person. It is not your fault. Something in me just doesn't work. I've always had terrible thoughts. I've always had these demons. I know I'm going to get caught. Those thoughts have been fueled by cocaine and alcohol. I think this is the end for me. I'm either going to prison or going to die. I'm sorry I'm a shitty son. I also know that you will love me no matter what." Those words were chilling in their clarity, but the letter was only one piece of what had been building in Brandon's mind before that night. His search history in the days leading up to the murder added an even darker dimension to everything investigators already knew. He had searched for silencers and weapons. He had researched the serial killer Ted Bundy specifically, how Bundy had lured his victims, what made them trust him, what made them get in the car. He had also searched domestic violence murders, how to restrain people, and the effects of morph suits. These were not casual searches. These were not the searches of someone stumbling across disturbing content by accident or out of morbid curiosity. They were specific. They were methodical. Taken together, they described someone who had been thinking about what he was going to do and thinking about it carefully, deliberately, over a period of time. Brandon's lawyer acknowledged that the searches could appear troubling depending on how one chose to interpret them. His father, Daniel, released a public statement expressing his belief in his son's innocence. "I know my son is innocent, and I have reasons to believe that I can't share anything now, but I would ask everybody to please give him the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise." Brandon was extradited back to Lafayette County. Investigators had already reconstructed the timeline of what had actually happened. On Friday, July 19th, just before midnight, Ally had left the bar in Oxford Square and arrived home safely by Uber. Brandon, meanwhile, had been at a friend's house that evening, and he had shown up there with the gun and a six-pack of beer. He disappeared from that gathering just before 1 in the morning, without anyone seeing him go. He climbed into his truck and went to get Ally. She slipped out of her own home without anyone hearing her leave. She got into his truck under the impression that the two of them were finally going to talk and come up with a plan together. Having already consumed cocaine and alcohol, at 1:14 in the morning, Brandon drove them both toward the abandoned fishing camp near Sardis Lake, roughly 45 minutes from Oxford. Cell phone records placed both Ally and Brandon at every point along that journey. The roads grew narrower and darker as they went, trees pressing in from both sides, no lights, nothing for miles. 45 minutes in a truck, in the dark, with a man she had known for nearly 3 years. A man she had cried over, defended to her friends, and still believed, on some level, would eventually come around. It is a difficult thing to sit with the thought of those final moments for Ally. No one outside of Brandon knows what was said when they reached that place, or whether any real conversation happened at all, whether she saw it coming or was caught completely off guard, whether she understood in those final seconds what was happening, or whether it was over before she had the chance to. But what happened next is a matter of record. Brandon circled the picnic table and fired at Ally multiple times, from different angles, leaving her with no chance of survival. As Brandon sat in custody, more than 100 people gathered from across the region for Ally's funeral. Her high school track coach drove more than 14 hours just to say goodbye. She was that kid, he said, the reason that coaches coach. Following a mental health evaluation, investigators concluded that Brandon had been in a sound state of mind when he took Ally's life. His attorney acknowledged the finding, but also wanted it on the record that Brandon had been under the influence of alcohol and cocaine at the time, as though that somehow changed what the searches had shown. As though Ted Bundy and restraint techniques were things you look up impulsively on a bad night. On August 30th, 2019, a grand jury indicted Brandon on a capital murder charge. He pleaded not guilty. The capital designation arose from prosecutors' argument that luring Ally into the truck under false pretenses constituted kidnapping in addition to the murder itself. Prosecutors pointed to the pregnancy tests as the driving motive behind everything that followed. Brandon had made no secret of the fact that he wanted no part of fatherhood and had openly told Ally it would ruin his life.
And in Mike today, the defense attorneys asked for a psychological evaluation. In the meantime, the accused killer, Brandon Thiesfeld, will stay in jail.
The family of Allie Costal spoke for the first time, her cousin reading a short statement in court.
We pray for strength in the coming days and are thankful for the friends, neighbors, co-workers, and many others who have supported us.
Costal's family traveled from St. Louis to Mississippi for the hearing. Brandon Thiesfeld is charged with murder. His attorney says he was going to request bond, but after he discovered new information, he decided to ask for a mental health evaluation. Outside of court, a handful of young women held signs saying justice for Allie.
It's incredibly difficult for us to have to deal with these kind of cases, and I know it's just terrible and difficult for them, not only to have to deal with that kind of loss, but then to have to come and face this.
The prosecution's case was about as strong as any could reasonably be. Cell phone data placed both Ally and Brandon together on the night she was shot. There was the pregnancy motive. There were the clothes bearing physical evidence of the crime. There was the gun matching the shell casings at the scene. And there was the letter which read, "For all the world," like a statement from a man who had already decided what he was going to do. Brandon's trial went through several delays, made significantly worse by the pandemic, but almost 2 years to the date of his indictment, on August 27, 2021, Brandon Thiesfeld pleaded guilty to first-degree murder rather than capital murder. That plea spared him the death penalty. The story he gave his lawyers was that both of them had been drinking, that he had used cocaine, that he pulled out the gun and fired it aimlessly out over the lake, that Ally became frightened, and that moments later he shot her. He maintained that none of it had been planned, but the evidence did not support that version. Ally had not been shot once. She had sustained nearly 10 gunshot wounds in one of the most remote locations imaginable. The prosecution was unequivocal. This was premeditated. Even his own lawyer admitted there was no justification for what Brandon had done and no satisfying explanation for why. His attorney described a young man who, on paper, had every advantage: a loving family, a father who was a physician, a good school, no history of serious violence, not so much as a physical altercation, a childhood that, by all accounts, had been a happy one. What had led him down the path that ended Ally's life, even his own lawyer had to admit, was something no one had seen coming.
A new chapter in the tragedy tonight. Brandon Thiesfeld sentenced to life in prison after pleading guilty. Thiesfeld was led into a Mississippi courtroom today by 4 officers handcuffed in a bright orange jumpsuit.
A tragic situation. It's akin to a Greek tragedy.
Brandon Thiesfeld was sentenced to life in prison, though he will be eligible for conditional release when he reaches 65 years of age. For what appeared to be the first time since any of this had begun, he showed genuine emotion in that courtroom. He turned to Ally's family and said, "I am sincerely sorry for the pain I've caused while taking Ally from you. My actions have forever changed your lives and my family's lives. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't. There is no excuse for my actions, and I have asked God for forgiveness. I hope one day that you will find it in your heart to forgive me." Those words came far too late for the family sitting in that room, and for everyone who had known and loved Ally. No sentence handed down and no apology offered could ever fill the space left behind by her absence. Brandon's mother, Carrie, spoke about what those days felt like from the inside. She said that when she first heard Brandon was being spoken to by the police, she did not have a single thought that it could be him, not even a flicker of suspicion. That is perhaps one of the most painful realizations a parent can be left with, that the person you raised, the child you thought you knew, had been living with something you never once saw. Out of that pain came a message she clearly felt she had to put into words. She urged every parent to regularly sit down with their children, teenagers, young adults, all of them, and make one thing clear: that there will never be anything too big, too complicated, or too far gone for them to come to you with. Carrie said that the family would always pray for the family and friends of Ally Costal. And while Brandon's family was left trying to make sense of what their son had done, Ally's family was left to face a world without her in it entirely. Ally's friends did not stand still in their grief. They started fundraising, setting a goal of $150,000 for the dedication of the Mind and Body Studio in the South Campus Recreation Center in Ally's name. They wanted something real to carry her forward, not just a plaque, but a place where people would actually move, breathe, and live the things Ally had always believed in. That kind of effort says something powerful about the person she was. You do not rally like that for someone who left only a surface impression. You do it for someone whose presence in your life is genuinely irreplaceable and whose absence leaves a shape that nothing else quite fills. Ally's dad, Keith, put his grief into words that anyone who has ever lost someone will recognize immediately. He said it still feels like his daughter is simply away at school. And then he described something that so many people in grief understand but rarely say out loud, that the quietest moments are the most haunting. Not the ceremonies or the anniversaries marked on a calendar, but the moments in between, when the busyness stops, when there is no noise left to fill the space.
Really was just like up to do anything. She just wanted to like live life to the fullest. She would walk in a room and just the whole like room would light up. I always knew she was like there, like she was like my person. And I could just always count on her. I feel like I just am gonna like wake up tomorrow and it's gonna be over.
Ally was someone who gave everything 110% every single time, without exception. The people who actually knew her said this again and again, in their own words, without being asked to. She created a second Instagram account just for sunsets, not for followers, not for attention, just because she wanted to save something beautiful. And now, whenever her friends see a really vibrant sunset, they look up and say hi to her. It is a small ritual born entirely out of love. Ally's best friend Maddie said she was going to try to be more happy, more optimistic, and live life to the fullest like Ally did. That she would carry the memory of Ally's smile in the back of her mind to keep her going. That is the kind of impression Ally Costal left behind. Not just a memory, but a reason to keep moving forward. She collected sunsets. She made space in her life for beauty, for people, for the kind of effort that goes beyond what is required of anyone. She traveled to Peru and Africa to teach children she had never met. She built clubs and communities and spaces where people could feel good. And then someone who had every reason to choose differently chose to take all of that away in a remote, dark stretch of road 30 miles from everything she had built. Brandon knew her. She trusted him enough to get into his truck in the middle of the night because she believed they were finally going to talk. That trust, that specific, named, chosen trust, was the last thing he took from her. What happened to Ally raises questions worth carrying with you. How do you recognize emotional abuse when it wears the face of charm, when the person hurting you is also the person you keep going back to because they make you feel seen? What do those searches actually tell us about how this kind of violence gets planned and how far in advance? And when someone writes their darkest thoughts in a letter addressed to their parents and hides it in their apartment, what does it mean that no one around them, no roommate, no friend, no family member ever saw what was building? If you want to keep exploring cases where the danger was hiding in plain sight, subscribe and stay close. Next time, we are looking at another case where the answers were right there and everyone missed them.